It is already past 9 o'clock in the morning, but the sky outside the window is still gloomy, and the drizzle has been floating. The light rain began to fall 2 days ago, and it has been 3 full days today. This kind of weather similar to the rainy season occurred in London in September, which is really rare. This kind of weather mostly happened in winter in London. At that time, London was cold and humid, but also foggy. It was the most uncomfortable season. Yang Jing half leaned on the head of his bed boringly, playing with a ring with a peculiar pattern in his hand. Yesterday was Saturday, just in time for the Meigong Road Flea Market to open in the afternoon, and every Saturday, the Meigong Road Flea Market will spontaneously become an antique market. Meigong Road Flea Market is one of the top 10 famous flea markets in London. It is open 7 days a week, but this market is a vegetable market on Thursday and Friday, and an antique market on Saturday. The rest of the week time is the real flea market. Yang Jing, who has been fond of antique culture under the influence of his grandfather since he was a child, naturally will not let go of the various antique cultural markets in London, so although it has been raining yesterday, Yang Jing still went to the United States Hong Kong Road Flea Market. However, since he was a child, adhering to the principle of watch more and buy less taught by his grandfather, Yang Jing seldom buys things in this market every time he visits the antique market, whether he is in the domestic antique market or after studying in London. But at the flea market on Meigong Road yesterday, Yang Jing couldn't help but make a move. Although I bought this ring with a strange pattern for only £6, this ring is the third time Yang Jing has bought something in the antique market since he was a child. It's strange to say that when Yang Jing saw this ring for the first time, his heart throbbed, and then it seemed as if there was a voice in the dark that kept saying, "Buy me, buy it now. Me." Therefore, after studying in London for almost 2 years, Yang Jing, who has visited London's top 10 flea markets several times but has never bought anything before, did not hesitate to bargain for the export this time, and then quotation for the second price. After the £10 ring was cut to £6 abruptly, he decisively paid for it. This ring is a bit similar to the ancient Chinese finger puller. It is not gold or wood. Yang Jing studied it all night and half a morning, but he did not see what material the ring was made of. But one thing is certain, this ring is very hard. The ring is a perfect circle with a thickness of about 3 mm. This thickness is really a bit thick for a ring. The inner and outer sides of the ring are black, and the sides are silver white. Is engraved with silver white gossip patterns on the black outer wall, and the same black inner wall is engraved with the fonts Scan, Kun, Gon, and Li in seal script, corresponding to the gossip patterns on the outer wall one by one. On the silver white side of the ring, black fringing is engraved. The whole ring looks like a very ordinary crafts ring, otherwise the bearded vendor would not quote a price of £20. But because of Yang Jing's understanding of Guwen Wan for so many years, he always faintly felt that this ring seemed unusual, especially the weird feeling he had when he first saw this ring. But if you ask Yang Jing to tell what's so unusual about this ring, he won't be able to tell. Is the so-called can be understood but not spoken, this is what it is talking about. But what Yang Jing can be sure of is that this ring is definitely not like an ordinary handicraft ring that it shows. This ring is definitely not simple. Cough, it's a pity that Grandpa doesn't understand anything now, otherwise if Grandpa see it, his old man will definitely recognize this ring. Yang Jing sighed slightly, muttering to herself. Thinking of Grandpa who had become unconscious because of a brain hemorrhage undergoing a craniotomy, Yang Jing couldn't help but feel a heartache. Threw the ring into the air, and after catching it again, he put the ring on his left little finger. Not to mention, this ring seems to be made for Yang Jing by nature, and it fits right on his little finger. Picked up a washed apple, Yang Jing sat up straight and began to peel the apple seriously. Just cut it twice, and with a loud clang sound, the door of the dormitory was slammed open by a huge force. Yang Jing shivered with fright, and the sharp fruit knife swiped in his left hand. A small wound was left, and the dark red blood suddenly poured out. "Ha ha, Jinga, Did you miss me? With a greasy voice that made people get goosebumps, a fat man swayed his huge body and squeezed in from the outside. This guy is not tall, only 1 meter and 7 points in height, but it's a bit scary when it's thick. This guy's waist is almost the same as his height, even if it's not 1 meter 7, it's 1 meter 5. At first glance, it's just a bucket, or a large one. Damn, you fat guy, can you not enter the door this way? How much money did you spend just repairing the door in the past 2 years? Yang Jing held the injured part with his lips while being vague. Glared at the fat man and shouted angrily. Hey, what's wrong with you? The fat man was a little panicked when he saw Yang Jing's posture. Yang Jing gave the fat man angrily and ignored the guy. The fat man rushed over like a gust of wind with a kind of agility that didn't fit his figure. Let me see, let me see. Damn, why are you so careless? Tell me if you want to eat meat, I'll buy it for you on .yunsha.com, what do you mean by poking at your own paw? Go. Yang Jing tried to kick, the fat man laughed and avoided, took 2 steps, opened the corner cupboard, took out the first aid kit from the inside, pulled a few times inside, and took out 2 band-aids. Yang Jing waved his hand and said, it doesn't need that, it doesn't go deep, I have sterilized it with saliva, and it will be fine if I wash it again later. The fat man said, that can't be done. I have never figured out how can you be so disgusting, use your own saliva. He said, the fat man looked disgusted. Yang Jing laughed and said, you are just a mallet, you don't understand anything. Explaining this to you is more wasteful than playing the piano against a cow. The fat man raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. Okay, okay, are you awkward? It's not your fault. But I have good news here, do you want to listen? Yang Jing glanced at the fat man lazily, and then sucked the wound. After looking at the wound, he said, is there another place for us to clean up? The fat man grinned, as if he still couldn't accept that his roommate could use this method to deal with the wound. However, he nodded and said, yes, we are here to live again, but this time we are going to a castle, and the price is very good. After this work is done, we can have a good time before graduation. But are your hands okay? Yang Jing shook his head, and was about to say it's okay, but suddenly found that the ring that I put on my little finger just now was gone. P.S. Haha, my old MO is back. This time Lao MO will continue to dedicate an urban supernatural power essay to everyone, hoping that everyone will continue to support Lao MO. Recommendations, favorites, and clicks are all required. Dear friends, let us continue to create a new chapter together. The suddenly missing ring surprised Yang Jing, and subconsciously lifted the bed sheet to search for it. The fat man said with a smile, Brother Jing, what are you doing? Could it be that you hid something good for me to keep my brother from knowing? Yang Jing waved his hand and swept his eyes under the bed. He didn't find the ring. He stood up straight and looked for it again on the bed. After still not seeing the ring, he said a little depressed, yesterday I bought a gadget at the Meigong Road Market, and I accidentally didn't know where it was dropped just now. Forget it, let's look for it carefully later. After a pause, Yang Jing raised his head and smiled at the fat man and said, I said Xiang'er, tell my brother about the job you took. Hearing the name Xiang'er in Yang Jing's mouth, the fat man's face collapsed and he said indignantly, damn it, how many times have I told you, don't call me Xiang'er, I don't want to be you Xiang'er. Yang Jing laughed loudly, and easily uncovered a band-aid that the fat man had put on the table. While putting the band-aid on the wound, he said, oh, it's okay to call me Brother Jing with your kid, but not Brother Jing called you Xiang'er. Don't forget, your name is Guo Xiao Xiang. Isn't it right to call you Xiang'er? The fat man rolled his eyes, clutched his head and said to the sky, this is my ignorant father. You said that you don't give your son such a wonderful name because of so many good names. What? Guo Xiao Xiang. Guo Xiao Xiang. Why didn't your old man give your son the name Guo Xiang directly? Yang Jing grinned and smiled. No wonder Yang Jing was anxious when he mentioned the nickname Fatty. The fat man's name is Guo Xiaoxiang. In Fatty's words, his father and his mother were big fans of Jin Yang. In the late 1980s, China land, Jin Yang's works were absolutely sweeping. At that time, the fat father and his mother met through the unique book club of that era, then fell in love and got married, and finally had his son. But it happened that the fat man was in Xiangyang when his mother gave birth to him. In addition, those two are big fans of Jin Dai, especially his father, because his surname is Guo, he has always called himself a hero Guo Jing. Brothers from generation to generation, so Fatty's name naturally became Guo Xiaoxiang. Fatty is a chicken, born in 1993, 1 year younger than Yang Jing. But everyone in China knows that in Jin Yang's The Legend of the Condor Heroes, there is a lovely character named Guo Xiang, whose nickname is Xiang'er, who is the youngest daughter of the hero Guo Jing, who is also the younger brother of Jing. When Yang Jing and Guo Xiaoxiang met 2 years ago, when Yang Jing introduced himself, the fat man gave Yang Jing the name of Brother Jing. As a result, when Yang Jing knew the name of the fat man, the name of Xiang'er was naturally inseparable. Fatty. If the generations are ranked according to this name, the fat man will be obliged to become the daughter of Brother Jing, Yang Jing. How can Guo Xiaoxiang accept such a thing? Finally, after Yang Jing changed his slogan to Fatty, Guo Xiaoxiang settled down. I said Lao Yang, this time I was looking for a really good job. It was in an old castle, but it was a bit far from London. The triumphant look on Guo Xiaoxiang's face was beyond words. Old castle. Sure enough, after hearing the fat man's words, Yang Jing also showed a look of surprise on his face. That's right, it's an old castle, not the manor and villas we went to before. This time the job is a real old castle. Like Guo Xiaoxiang, Yang Jing and Guo Xiaoxiang are both master students from China to study in London, but Yang Jing's family conditions are very ordinary, and his parents are ordinary workers. If it weren't for Yang Jing's father to follow the company's project department to study abroad for a few years how much money he made, Yang Jing didn't have the financial resources to come to London to study for a master's degree. But Guo Xiaoxiang is different. This guy is a typical rich second generation. His father had a good time to catch up. Before the price increase of coal at the beginning of the new century, Guo Xiaoxiang's father bought a small coal mine that couldn't keep going. As a result, as soon as the coal mine was acquired, China's coal prices began to grow wildly. The best few years happened to have Guo Xiaoxiang and his father caught up. In just a few years, Guo Xiaoxiang and his father have become a veritable billionaire. Later, the price of coal was not so good. Guo Xiaoxiang's father sold the coal mine in his hands decisively, and used his saved family property plus the money from selling coal mines to plunge into the real estate industry. And now, Guo Xiaoxiang's father has become the richest man in the city where his home is. But even though Guo Xiaoxiang's family is rich, this guy is not a dude. Apart from the dude, this guy really has nothing in common with the dude in other places. Thanks to Guo Xiaoxiang's mother, who is a university professor. Under the cultivation of his mother since he was a child, Guo Xiaoxiang has not caught any of the vices of the dude. In addition, although Guo Xiaoxiang's father is rich, he also attaches great importance to his family, especially Guo Xiaoxiang, the only son. Therefore, Guo Xiaoxiang did not become a part of the many boys and girls. Even if Guo Xiaoxiang was sent to London by his parents to study for a university and a master's degree, Guo Xiaoxiang did not spend any money lavishly. On the contrary, this guy has always used his spare time to make money while studying in London. Guo Xiaoxiang, who has been in London for 6 years, has quite a wealth of working experience. Among them, dealing with some garbage for the homes of the wealthy is a pretty good job. Britain is a developed country with a lot of wealthy people, especially rich people with identities. Among them, there are countless rich people with a net worth of more than 100 million yuan and distinguished identities. The places where these big rich people live are often very good. Villas and mansions are nothing to these big rich people. Only manors and castles can reflect the status of these big rich people. However, whether it is an old castle or a manor, it has a particularly huge area, and these manors and castles have existed for a long time. Therefore, in daily life, there will always be some things that the owners don't need, such as the owner is tired of tableware, furniture, electrical appliances, and other items that he is beginning to look down on. Although the owner does not need these things, they are also different from ordinary garbage. Although these things are of little value to the owners of those manors or castles, some of them are quite valuable to some ordinary people outside. Therefore, every once in a while, the butler responsible for managing these manors or castles will gather some fixed people to deal with these useless items. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Of course, ordinary people can't do this kind of work. Because some of these useless items may involve the privacy of the owner of the manor or castle, when the housekeeper gathers people, he usually gathers familiar people to deal with these things. People who are unfamiliar are not the housekeeper. Will call you. Some of these useless items are worth a little to the outside world, so they will naturally be dealt with at a low price to these people who specialize in on-site service, which is regarded as a welfare for them. But when these people deal with those items, they should also pay attention to whether there is anything that involves the owner's privacy. Once they are discovered, they must be returned to the owner. Of course, those butlers will not directly deal with people who specialize in handling such useless items. These butlers also find people through intermediaries. As for those intermediaries, of course they are also familiar with the rules, so when intermediaries look for people, they must also look for acquaintances. There are not many people doing this kind of business in the UK, and most of the objects they serve are some rich people or even real aristocrats, so this kind of people is called the richest garbage disposer in a very small circle. Is not known to the public. Although this business is small, the benefits contained in it are great. Therefore, people who enter this circle will consciously maintain some of the secrets of this business, and will not talk about many things. This is also an important reason why this industry is not well known. Guo Xiaoxiang also entered this business by chance. He has been in London for 6 years, but he has been in the business of dealing with useless items for 5 years. He is also considered a member of this business. Old man. Later, Guo Xiaoxiang and Yang Jing met. Under Guo Xiaoxiang's leadership, Yang Jing also became a rich garbage disposal. This old castle is called Vardy Castle, located in Wales. The exact location is near Fishguard. Guo Xiaoxiang continued, shaking his head. God, in Wales. Yang Jing frowned and asked, it's still far from London. Is it far? Although Wales is on the west side of the British island, do you think that an island country like Great Britain can be compared with our great celestial country? If it is in our country, there will be at least 4 in one east and 1 west, even if you fly by plane. I am young, but here, hee. The fat man expressed disdain. Yang Jing took out his mobile phone to check and nodded and said, that's right, I haven't had much activity in the past few months, but I forgot that we are in the UK now. Guo Xiaoxiang waved his hand and said, Brother Jing, you don't have to check it. The information about Vardy's castle is not available on Google. This should be for protection or other reasons. You know, there are 641 castles in Wales, but they are really not many people can find information on the internet. After a while, Yang Jing shook his head and put the phone aside. Fatty, as you said, there is no information available on the internet, but a piece of information related to Baron William Vardy was found. Guo Xiaoxiang smiled and said, I also saw that message. In fact, before I came back, I checked a lot of news about Baron Vardy on the way. Although it is not helpful for us to understand this mysterious nobleman, it can be done anyway. We know who we will serve tomorrow. After a pause, Guo Xiaoxiang continued, Baron William Vardy is the 11th generation head of the Vardy family. On the surface, this family is not visible, but the family business hidden under the water is still considerable. Huge. The Vardy family emerged in the First Anglo-Dutch War that broke out in the middle of the 17th century. At that time, the Vardy family was only a supplier of vegetables and fruits for the British Army. The family's assets quickly swelled, and in the Second Anglo-Dutch War, Helms Vardy, the patriarch of the Vardy family, donated a battleship to the British Navy at that time, and was appreciated by Charles II. Helms Vardy was made a baron. From then on, the Vardy family began to flourish. Yang Jing stuck out his tongue and said, according to you, this Vardy family is still an old nobleman. Guo Xiaoxiang nodded and said, yes, although the Vardy family is not well known in the UK, it is definitely an old nobleman who has prospered for more than 400 years for nearly 500 years. The bottom line. Then let's handle some unnecessary things for others like before this time. Guo Xiaoyang shook his head and said, no, this time I have to live more in the past. Looking at Yang Jing, Guo Xiaoxiang said, there is an old saying in China that is very good, and the prosperity will decline. This sentence is just as suitable when used abroad. The Vardy family has flourished for more than 400 years, and one is related to the previous social environment. The relationship, and the other one also has a great relationship with the helm of the Vardy family. Before William Vardy became the helm of the Vardy family, the successive helms of the Vardy family were very good, so the Vardy family can flourish for so many years. But the current helm of the Vardy family, that is, Baron William Vardy, does not seem to inherit the shrewdness of his ancestors. As a result, in the 2 decades since he took over the Vardy family, the huge Var the Di family was almost defeated in his hands. Now even the old castle where the Vardy family has lived for more than 400 years can't live in. Yang Jing covered his forehead and shook his head speechlessly. We are going over this time to completely clean up the Valdi castle. It is said that there are more than 20 people who went to this time, all of whom are veterans in our industry. So although the rewards are relatively high this time, if you want to be in it, I'm afraid it won't be easy to pick things up. Yang Jing asked, how much can you give us over there this time? One person is 600 pounds a day, and we end up with 400 pounds a person. Guo Xiaoxiang shrugged and said, the intermediaries, all of them are vampires. Professional garbage disposers like them actually still need relatively high technology. When disposing of the garbage that has been kept in the dust for a long time, we should not only pay attention to whether there are any things that involve the privacy of the owner among the useless things, but also pay attention to whether there are more valuable items. If something like this appears, it must be handed over to the person in charge according to regulations. It's just that, perhaps someone will turn in the former, but as for the latter, basically no one will pay attention to those who don't turn in. After all, these garbage disposers also need to make money, don't they? They have worked so hard to pick out things from some rubbish. If they are of high value, no one wants to give them back, isn't it? Of course, if these valuable things are seen by the owner, there is no way, you have to pay them if you don't. But if the owner can't tell, and the garbage disposer buys it back at a relatively low price, that's a lot of extra money. Therefore, in order to prevent this kind of thing from happening, the owner usually pays a lot of money to the garbage disposal. Like the work Yang Jing and Guo Xiaoxiang did before, they had an income of 200 pounds on the lowest day. This time I was able to get 400 pounds, which was a high price that had never been seen before for the two of them. Yang Jing smiled and patted the fat man on the shoulder and said, wow, this price is really not low. But don't complain, if it weren't for the middlemen, we wouldn't be able to receive such a good job, right? Time to work. People ask to start tomorrow morning, so we'd better leave for lunch when we are full. After all, London is 260 miles away from Fishguard. With my broken classic car, I can't run for 6 hours. Yang Jing grinned and said, well, to celebrate that we can receive such a good job, let's have a good meal at noon. Xiang we can receive this job and you have the most credit. Whatever you want to eat, just say, do it for you for the father. Guo Xiaoxiang ran away again. Go is indeed an old castle that has been passed down for nearly 500 years. The Valdi Castle stands on a small hill next to Fishguard Port. Although this hill is not high, it is the highest area around Fishguard. The castle stands on the top of the hills, facing the sea, and it is very imposing. In fact, when Vardi's ancestors decided to build the castle here, it was to guard against the Dutch navy and even the pirates. In the 17th century, it was a crucial moment for European countries to compete for the Atlantic Ocean. Whether it was the Anglo-Dutch War, the Dutch War or the Anglo-Spanish War, in that magnificent era, several coastal countries had absolutely control over the Atlantic Ocean. Human brains become dog brains. Together with the rampant pirates of that era, it can be said that Britain in that era was actually located at the center of a maelstrom. The ancestors of the Vardi family were made barons by Charles II, and of course they took on the responsibility of defending the homeland. Therefore, Vardi's ancestors built this old castle with an obvious Norman style on the hill near Fishguard Port. Fishguard is the base of the Vardi family and the nest of the Vardi family. Naturally, the castle will be built here. Although the small hills are not very high, but the area is not small, the Valdi castle stands on the top of the small hills. This castle was obviously built for the military, with a strong Norman style, which is a kind of Roman style. Compared to the gorgeous Gothic style, the Norman-style castle is obviously more suitable for military use. The old castle covers a very wide area. In order to build this old castle, almost all the tops of the hills have been flattened. And in order to better defend, the castle is not one layer, but divided into 3 layers. From halfway up the mountain, a circle of tall and thick city walls appeared. The grey-white city wall is 20 feet high and 10 feet thick. The whole body is made of huge granite. Although it has experienced nearly 500 years of wind and rain, it still gives people a feeling of being as heavy as a mountain. After this city wall, there is a circle of slightly shorter city walls inside, and the outer courtyard area of the entire castle is formed between the 2 city walls. Back then, this ring-shaped outer court area could be used to garrison troops. Once a war broke out, the soldiers between the 2 walls could quickly board the outer wall to resist attacks from powerful enemies. It's just that, the outer courtyard that was used as a troop in the past has now become an area of birds and flowers. Yang Jing and Guo Xiaoxiang walked all the way, and even saw a small golf course. After passing the shorter city wall in the middle, even if it entered the real core of the castle. In the very center of the castle, there is a main castle also made of granite, covering an area of 2,000 square meters. The castle is 5 stories high, almost 60 feet high, with a concave shape as a whole. Next to the main fort, there is a 70-foot tall tower, and there is a Gothic chapel beside the main fort. This castle has a total area of 30 acres. Even if you look at the entire United Kingdom, it can be ranked as the number 1. Butler is obviously familiar with this castle, or what he has done in preparation to be more full. It's just that this castle has always belonged to the Vardi family since the day it was built, so the outside world doesn't know about this castle. I also fully understood how great this castle is after I accepted the commission and entered here. Butler whispered to Yang Jing and Guo Xiaoxiang about some things in the castle, while shaking his fist excitedly. As Butler said, this castle really deserves the word great. With an area of 30 acres, that is a full 120,000 square meters, more than 180 acres. This area alone is enough to shock most people. The inner courtyard of the castle is very clean. Although the Vardi family is no longer ready to live in this castle, there are still service personnel in it to maintain the daily hygiene of the castle. Butler led Yang Jing and Guo Xiaoxiang into the main fort. Yang Jing and Guo Xiaoxiang were also shaken by the brilliant structure inside the main fort without speaking for a long time. However, the Vardi family is obviously not going to live here anymore, because many of the decorations in the main fort have been taken down, and some furniture and other things are also piled up together, just waiting for the Vardy family to put it in. These valuable decorations and furniture are pulled out. Butler is obviously a person who likes castles very much. After seeing these things, he stopped again, with an indescribable look on his face, with a trace of sadness inside. Shaking his head, Butler took Yang Jing and the others up the stairs. As they went upstairs, Butler said in a low voice, "It's a pity, if it weren't for the failure of Baron William Vardy's investment, their family would still be fine. Enjoy this beautiful castle." Yang Jing asked curiously, "What does Baron Vardy do? How can this castle be lost if the investment fails?" Butler said, "The Vardy family's business is very large, and I am not very clear about some things. But I know one thing." "Does the Swedish IKEA know?" Yang Jing and Guo Xiaoxiang nodded. IKEA is the world's largest furniture retail company, and this company has a very big name. The founder of IKEA, Mr. Kamprad, has a very good relationship with the grandfather of Baron William Vardy. To be precise, when Mr. Kamprad founded IKEA, the grandfather of Baron William Vardy was the old man. Baron William is one of the main investors of IKEA. In other words, the largest individual shareholder of IKEA is the Vardy family. After a pause, Butler continued to whisper, "It's a pity that Baron Vardy does not have the shrewdness of his grandfather and his father." After Baron William Vardy took over the Vardy family, he made several successive failed decisions, leading to a major crisis for the entire Vardy family. Up to now, Baron William Vardy can't even afford the annual maintenance cost of £2.8 million of the castle. He had to decide to sell the castle outside. The Vardy family must be in an irresistible dilemma, otherwise the contemporary Baron Vardy would not decide to sell this valuable castle to alleviate the family's economic crisis. But these things are too far away from Yang Jing and Guo Xiaoxiang, Butler is willing to say. They are also happy to listen to a story. Soon, the three of them arrived at the top level of the main castle. This floor is said to be a loft, but it is actually different from the loft in the ordinary sense. This floor is located on the top floor of the main fort. Strictly speaking, it should be considered as one floor, but the floor height of this floor is slightly lower, only 2.5 meters, and the lower floors are more than 4 meters high. Compared with the height, this floor really looks like an attic. The sun is about to set soon, and this floor looks rather dim because there are no lights on. However, it can be seen that there are a lot of things piled up here in a mess, and it is covered with dust. Obviously, it is estimated that no one has come up to take care of it for a long time. Because it's on the highest floor and the ventilation is good, although this floor hasn't been up for a long time, it's not damp, but rather dry. The dust that floats up from time to time makes Yang Jing's nose itchy. Oh, I'm rough. Even though he was prepared in his heart, Yang Jing was taken aback by the transparent interface that appeared before him again. Same as the last time, the interface that appeared this time is still 4 lines. Yang Jing removed his left hand subconsciously, and as expected, the interface immediately disappeared. Touched the book with his left hand again, and the interface appeared again. "Fatty!" Yang Jing yelled, and Guo Xiaoxiang, who was more than 10 meters away, turned his head and glanced at Yang Jing. He found that Yang Jing seemed to be teasing you, curled his mouth and gave Yang Jing a middle finger, and then continued to give go-ahead. Interesting. Yang Jing moved his left hand away and touched his chin slightly to herself. Obviously, the fat man can't see this thing that appeared suddenly. Could it be that only I can see this thing? Yang Jing muttered to herself, and in order to trigger this thing to appear, it seems that you have to use your left hand. Otherwise, this thing won't show up. Well, then the root is in your left hand. Yang Jing raised his left hand and watched carefully. After a while, his eyes fell on the little finger of his left hand. Although the interface appeared several times later, it did not have the heat that appeared when it first appeared. And Yang Jing clearly remembered that the heat that appeared just now started from the little finger of his left hand. Could it be? Yang Jing slapped his mouth twice, and the ring that had disappeared suddenly appeared in his mind. While cooking at noon, Yang Jing took the time to look for the ring that had disappeared suddenly, but almost didn't move the bed and desk out, but didn't find the ring, which made Yang Jing very depressed. Originally, Yang Jing wanted to wait for him to go back and look for it carefully, but now that this happened suddenly, Yang Jing had to have other ideas. The good ring originally worn on his hand suddenly disappeared because he accidentally cut his hand. Now suddenly there is such a transparent interface that looks like a novel, which makes Yang Jing have other ideas. Don't look at Yang Jing, who studies well at ordinary times. He is still a top student in the UK, but Yang Jing is not a nerd who only knows how to study. In addition to playing an online game called World of Tanks when he is okay, he also reads online novels. He also reads some novels about urban supernatural powers. Now he suddenly encounters such a bizarre thing. It is inevitable that he can't help thinking about this. Originally, Yang Jing called the ring very much, otherwise he would not buy the ring, and then the ring suddenly disappeared. Now this happens again, and it starts from the little finger of the left hand, which inevitably prevents Yang Jing. Imagine together. The ring was worn on the hand, the left hand bleeds, the blood is stained on the ring, and then the ring drips blood to recognize the Lord, and finally formed such a magical interface. Although it sounds nonsensical, isn't it all in online novels? The more I think about it, the more excited Yang Jing is. Is it possible that I suddenly became a guy with magical powers? From now on, I can cross the world day by day, relying on my omnipotent powers, and finally shatter the void. Shivered abruptly. This nonsensical thought made him amused himself. Lao Yang, where are you drying your hair? Guo Xiaoxiang, who was standing at the door, suddenly shouted. Yang Jing suddenly woke up, waved his hand at the fat man and said, "Wait a moment." The fat man shook his head, took out his mobile phone and fiddled with him. Was interrupted by the fat man, but Yang Jing suddenly remembered another thing that seemed very important. Yang Jing put his left hand on the book again, and the interface appeared again, but this time it was a bit different. Was originally a light yellow font, but now it has become red, and a line of small print also appears in the interface. The energy of the holy ring is not enough, only enough for the host to perform 3 more identifications. Please, the host immediately absorb the appropriate energy. The small print suddenly appeared in this line, which made Yang Jing even more happy. If the speculation just now is a brainstorm, then the warning font that suddenly appeared in this line is undoubtedly a direct proof that the idea just now is not brainstorming, but true. Especially the word holy ring. Forcibly suppressed the urge to jump up and shout, Yang Jing once again moved his gaze to the 4 lines on the interface. Yes, I just patronized the interface to think about the origin of this interface, but ignored the things represented in these 4 lines. This book is the 1958 edition of the National Biography Dictionary. This has been confirmed. Moreover, the circulation of such important reference books is usually very large, and no one will be so tempted to use such reference books to falsify. But what is the following 3 lines? Especially the 3 words at the end of each line: Picasso. Judging from everything displayed in this interface should be similar to something like an identification item, although the specific function of this interface is still unclear. Com can clearly identify the origin of this book based on the interface, which is enough to prove that the identification function of this interface is still very powerful and accurate. If this is the case, don't the following 3 lines mean that there are still 3 furniture sketches painted by Picasso in the book? If it is real. Yang Jing only felt that his little heart was pumping involuntarily. God, that was Picasso's sketch. Although Picasso created nearly 37,000 works in his life, including more than 7,000 sketches, Picasso is Picasso. The title of the top 10 greatest painters of the 20th century is not a boast. Any one of his works, just take out one that is worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. Among the top 10 paintings with the highest auction prices in the world, Picasso's works alone have 4. Of course, in the 1960s, Picasso's sketch paintings had a low price at auction. The ballpoint pen painting The Bust-Off Faun created in 1953 even sold for only $150. Low price, but it was the 1960s after all, and Picasso was still alive at that time. If you put Picasso's The Bust-Off Faun in the modern era, let alone $150, the price of that painting will rise 1,000 times, so you can only see it. And now, I seem to have discovered 3 sketches drawn by Picasso. In an instant, Yang Jing's mind almost went down. No. This book must be taken down. Although I haven't discovered where the 3 paintings are hidden in this book, at this moment, there is only one thought left in Yang Jing's mind. Yang Jing was called away by Teddy Butler. If Mr. Butler hadn't come forward, maybe Yang Jing would really live in the attic tonight. 3 Picasso sketches. Although the value of sketches is much lower than that of Picasso's watercolor paintings, and there is a difference in the value of his oil paintings, but at present, even the most common Picasso sketches are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Even millions of dollars. Because of studying abroad in the UK for the past 2 years, Yang Jing has also set his sights on the foreign antique art market. He has a relatively accurate grasp of the current foreign antique art market prices. Picasso's paintings are valuable, very valuable, which is universally recognized. However, Picasso's paintings also vary greatly in value due to the size of the frame, the type of painting, and the quality of the creation. When you mention Picasso, people naturally think of his oil paintings worth more than $100 million, but in fact, Picasso also has many works that are not high in value, such as some sketches and watercolors. But even if the value is not high, it is relative to his super valuable paintings. His works now absolutely need to be looked up to by the vast majority of painters in the world. Yang Jing has been very interested in antique Yuan under the influence of his grandfather since he was a child. It is no exaggeration that he has been in middle school since he was a child. In addition to doing homework during the holidays, he spent most of his time with the Yuan in his hometown. Spent in the market. Moreover, Yang Jing's home can only be regarded as an ordinary home. It can't say how rich it is. Now suddenly 3 Picasso sketches appeared in front of Yang Jing, and he has a very high possibility to take these 3 paintings out. Rao is Yang Jing is a very calm young man, at this time he is also a little bit unable to control himself. Teddy Butler and Guo Xiaoxiang yelled Yang Jing a few words, which pulled his mind back from 9 days away. Hey, Yang, did you find something good? Butler asked with a smile. Are all human spirits? They are all human spirits who have been in this line for several years, no one knows who. Of course Yang Jing, who had recovered from his senses, would not say what he really wanted. If the fat guy was there, Yang Jing would of course, but who was Butler? It's just an intermediary, and it's still an intermediary who is lying on them and sucking blood. If Yang Jing tells him the news of the 3 sketches, it will be kicked by the donkey. Shaking his head, Yang Jing said regretfully, I'm just feeling the luxury of Baron Vardy. Look at the shelves of books that were all published in the 1950s and 1960s, but these books are basically all I haven't seen it before, just being put on the shelf like this is simply trampling on knowledge. After a pause, Yang Jing asked Butler, Mr. Butler, don't you know if Baron Vardy wants these books? If he doesn't need them, I want to buy these books. You know, I'm now preparing my master's thesis. Books are still useful for me, and these books are all products of the last century, so. Butler looked at Yang Jing and then at Guo Xiaoxiang. He didn't seem to find any other expressions on the faces of the two of them. After a while, he said, I can't be the master of this, but I can take it with me after I come here tomorrow. You see Mr. John, if he agrees, I think you should be able to buy these books back. Mr. John in Butler's mouth is the butler of Vardy Castle. It is the master butler who is in charge of the current cleaning of the castle. Butler picked up the large tome with 3 sketches hidden in it, turned a few pages, and looked at the back of the book seemingly casually, then put the book back on the shelf, shrugged his shoulders and said, "Yang, these books are indeed good. If you can buy them back and put them down on the flea market, there will definitely be many people interested in these books." When Butler was flipping through the book just now, Yang Jing's heart was always holding it. After seeing Butler put the book back on the shelf, his heart calmed down. Hearing Butler said this, Yang Jing shook his head and said, "No, I don't plan to sell these books after I buy them. These are all good books. I want to store them. Of course, it's best if Mr. John agrees to buy these books at a lower price." Butler smiled and nodded. "Let's go, man, it's getting late, we should go out." He turned his head and walked out, and continued, "I think Mr. John should be able to agree to your request. After all, these books have been placed here for more than 50 years. After the 3 people came out of the Valdi castle, the gate of the castle was closed. The sky was completely dark. Butler tactfully refused Guo Zioxiang's invitation and drove away alone. He did a lot of things, especially the cleaning up of a huge castle tomorrow. For Butler, this is also one thing. For a very large project, he has to sit in the center and direct these garbage handlers to clean up the castle, so he still has a lot of work to do at night. Yang Jing and Guo Xiaoxiang drove to the city, bought a few pulleys and some ropes in a supermarket, and found a grocery store, where they bought a few sections of steel pipes and U-shaped clips, and then they found them. Stayed in a motel. I ate something casually to cushion my stomach. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com. 2 people started working together, and the purchased things formed a simple lifting equipment. Yang Jing and Guo Xiaoxiang have done these many times, and they came here at their fingertips. I kept busy until more than 10 o'clock, and then everything was done. After taking a shower, 2 people lie down on a bed. "Jing Gaig, your performance in the castle this evening is a bit wrong. Tell my brother." "Do you really want to hear?" "Nonsense, why don't you want to hear me mention this?" I said, "Is there something tricky about those books?" Yang Jing smiled and turned his head and asked, "What do you think?" Guo Xiaoxiang opened half of his life, revealing a half-length white fat, patted his chest and said, "If you look at Butler's grandson's performance, it seems that those books should be fine. It's not going to make much money to sell it at the flea market. But if you look at your performance, I think there must be a problem in it. Deserves to be a bed friend who has lived in a room for almost 2 years." The fat man still knows Yang Jing very well. Yang Jing smiled and shook his head and said, "Those books do have some problems, but I don't want to talk about them now. Fatty, I have to get what these books say tomorrow. If I'm right, as long as these books get handy, they will definitely be. There is a big surprise." Hearing Yang Jing's words, the fat man patted his chest again, causing another wave of turbulent waves. "Don't worry, this matter is left to me. Tomorrow, I will look at my 3-inch tongue. I promise to buy those books. P.S. Continue to ask for recommendation tickets and collections. Brothers and sisters, use your recommendation tickets and favorites to kill Lao Mo." The next day began to clean up the things in the castle, and more than 20 professional garbage disposers went into battle together, from the basement to the attic, from the garage to the storage room. Piles and piles may not be seen for decades or even hundreds of years. Everything in the sun has been cleaned out. There is an old Chinese saying that breaking a family is worth $1 million, and it still works in the UK. The Valdi castle has been built for more than 400 years and nearly 500 years ago. The Valdi family has always lived in this ancient castle. In the most prosperous period, more than 40 Valdi lived in this ancient castle. Direct members of the family. In addition, more than 400 soldiers were stationed in the castle. And it has been more than 100 years since the last time the castle was completely cleaned up. According to the current butler of the castle, Mr. John, the last time the castle was cleaned up was during World War I. However, after the First World War, the world structure has undergone tremendous changes. The original strong sun never sets the empire, and the Vardy family, which relies on the development of the British royal family, has also begun to decline with the decline of the British royal family. Otherwise, William Vardy's grandfather, the elder Baron William, would not invest in IKEA, but also began to invest in other industries. The current Baron Vardy actually wants to make the family business more prosperous, but he has no slaying skills but no dragon slaying skills. Many important investments have made major mistakes, which directly led to the rapid decline of the Vardy family. Come down. Now, this old castle, which has been inhabited for more than 400 years and nearly 500 years, cannot be kept, and those things that have not been cleaned up since World War I will naturally be revealed again. There are still 3 caddies of nails in the broken ship. Although the Vardy family declined rapidly, there are still many good things in the castle. Among other things, Yang Jing and Guo Xiaoxiang saw the 4 garbage handlers responsible for cleaning the basement with their own eyes. They found a wooden box in a corner of the basement. As a result, they found a picture of Paul in the wooden box. The oil paintings in Cézanne's still life series. Although the size of the oil painting is not large, but according to Paul Cézanne's reputation, if this oil painting is sold, the starting price must be at least 8 digits, and the unit is euro. Of course, that painting cannot be taken out of the castle. Although Mr. John is a butler, his vision is sharp. A professional British butler like him knows more than many experts and professors. It's difficult to pick up the leak under his nose. Not to mention that when cleaning up the castle this time, Baron Vardy invited a famous connoisseur and Mr. John to sit together at the British Museum. With these two sitting in town, it is absolutely impossible for those who are too valuable to be taken out of the castle. However, Yang Jing doesn't have to worry about this. The National Biography Dictionary he has been paying attention to is interspersed in more than 200 books. If you don't look it up carefully one by one, you won't find any flaws at all. In the end, these books were finally sold to Yang Jing for £500 after a rough appraisal by the appraisal expert. Although those books are some years old, they are all batch-printed books. They are not rare or isolated books. Let alone auction, they can't be sold at high prices even if they can be sold at the flea market. The price of £500 is still very suitable for Yang Jing and Guo Xiaoxiang. These books, Guo Xiaoxiang, also estimated that they can sell for around £1,200 to £1,500 at the flea market. The money is a lot of income for both of them, but Mr. John just looks down on it. There are a lot of these books, and Fishguard does not have a large-scale flea market. If you want to get rid of these books, you have to get them to Cardiff, the capital of Wales, or big cities like London. Mr. John won't waste so much energy just because of a mere fee of over £1,000. By convention, these books that are useless to the family will naturally be sold to garbage handlers at a low price as a reward. There are more than 200 books in these books. After the cleanup work on the first day was over, Yang Jing and Guo Xiaoxiang worked for more than an hour before bringing these books back to the motel where they lived. Has been busy for 2.5 days before the two of them cleaned out the entire attic. Except for those books, Yang Jing and Guo Xiaoxiang did not buy anything else. After Yang Jing paid more than £100 to invite Guo Xiaoxiang to have a seafood dinner, the two returned to the hotel and began to deal with the books. In fact, those books are nothing to Yang Jing at all, but Guo Xiaoxiang doesn't know yet, so Yang Jing will give Guo Xiaoxiang a surprise tonight. I said, Lao Yang, what was the surprise you said? Guo Xiaoxiang was obviously still thinking about the surprise, and asked Yang Jing while summarizing the books. Yang Jing held the National Biography Dictionary and looked it up there carefully. Wait, if I am not wrong, the surprise will appear soon. Hearing what Yang Jing said, Guo Xiaoxiang stopped picking up those books. He stood up and wiped his hands and sat down beside Yang Jing, asking, "This book is the surprise you said?" Yang Jing nodded. He just turned the book through and didn't see the 3 sketches. Now he is about to tear open the plastic cover of the book. However, things are not that complicated. Yang Jing just opened the cover and took a look. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com saw a slightly yellowed paper package lying quietly under the cover. What is this? Guo Xiaoxiang asked in surprise. Yang Jing shook his head and said, I don't know what it is, but I think it should be a good thing, otherwise this paper bag will not be stuffed here by Baron Vardy's father or grandfather. Took out the paper bag carefully. The paper is very ordinary white paper, but because of the long time, although it has been in the cover, the color has become a little yellow. Put the paper bag on the table, Yang Jing took out a pair of white gloves and put on them, then carefully opened the paper bag. The paper package contains several folded white papers. Because of the protection of the paper package, these white papers have not changed much. After opening the pieces of white paper, I found that there were 3 sheets of 1/6K size paper. On each piece of paper, there was a sketch of furniture. In the lower right corner of the sketch, there was a signature that Yang Jing was very familiar with. Yang Jing has seen the signature too many times since he came to the UK. Of course he knows this signature. And after seeing these 3 signatures, Guo Xiaoxiang's mouth grew involuntarily. Lao Yang, pinch me. I'm not dreaming, is this is Picasso's signature. Yang Jing, who had already known the result for a long time, naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity. He stretched out his hand and pinched the fat man's arm, but the fat man didn't respond. Fatty's reaction was so frightening that Yang Jing was shocked, and he shook Fatty vigorously. For a long time, the fat man shook his head, grinned and covered the pinched position, and said with a smile on his face, Lao Yang, I am afraid, I know it hurts. This shows that I am not in a dream. Not in a dream, how do you explain these 3 Picasso paintings? Fatty's reaction is normal. Even if it's replaced by Yang Jing, if he didn't know that there were 3 Picasso sketches in this National Biography Dictionary, when these 3 priceless sketches appeared in front of him, I am afraid that he is not much better than the fat man's current reaction. Patted the fat man with his left hand, and Yang Jing smiled and said, I don't know whether it's true or not. Can this be fake? The fat man stared at Yang Jing with squinted eyes, but it's a pity that this guy is too fat and his eyes are small. Obviously, these 3 paintings have been sandwiched in the cover of this book. I guess they were probably made by the old Baron William. Lao Yang, you can see that this book is from the 1958 edition. In other words, these 3 drawings were probably put in after 1958. The more he said that the fat man became more interested. In the past 2 years, the fat man followed Yang Jing to learn about antiques. According to my investigation, William Vardy's grandfather, Baron William Sr., passed away in 1965, and Baron William Sr. seemed to have a good relationship with Picasso during his lifetime. There are still 2 Picasso paintings in the Valdi family. It is said that Picasso painted at the invitation of the old Baron William. If the relationship between the old Baron William and Picasso is really good, then it is not surprising that Picasso painted such 3 furniture sketches for the old Baron William in the 1960s. After all, the old Baron William invested at that time. IKEA. Investing in IKEA is the best investment the Vardy family has made in recent decades. The most important thing is that the price of Picasso's sketches fell to the lowest point in the 1960s. Although Picasso painted these 3 paintings for the old Baron William, the old Baron William didn't take it very seriously, so he just stuffed it in the cover of the National Biography Dictionary used to decorate the study room. Then, after the death of the old Baron William, it may be his son or his grandson who disliked those books, so they shelved these books, and in the end it will be cheaper for both of us today. The fat man looked at Yang Jing and said with a smile, Lao Yang, how about my analysis? Yang Jing smiled and gestured to the fat man and said, it's wonderful. But what's the use of analyzing this? This painting is in our hands, and we still bought it from the Vardy family in a fair manner, so as long as I have verified the authenticity of these 3 paintings, so you still care about their origins? Now what we need to do is find someone to appraise these 3 paintings. What do you think, my Xiang'er? The fat man smiled wryly. It is rare that he didn't run away. In the face of these 3 magical sketches, the title Xiang'er is not easy to use. Yang Jing looked at the 3 paintings, and suddenly moved in his heart. He picked up the 3 paintings again, and touched the 3 paintings with the little finger of his left hand. The result was as warm as he had imagined in his heart. The heat flow from the little finger poured into his body in an instant. When these 3 paintings were discovered 2 days ago, the holy ring had an energy warning. But these days, Yang Jing thought of a lot of ways, and didn't know how to absorb that energy, which made him very frustrated. Since these 3 hidden sketches can be found in more than 200 useless books, it is enough to prove that this holy ring is very magical. If the holy ring can continue to help you identify antiques, it will not take long. You can reach the pinnacle of life by yourself. By the way, although the holy ring is magical, it needs so-called energy to support it. Moreover, the holy ring did not tell Yang Jing how to absorb this energy, and where to absorb it. The holy ring is like a dumb man who doesn't say anything. It's all up to Yang Jing, the so-called host, to fumble for himself, which makes Yang Jing very distressed. Now Yang Jing finally understands what this energy is all about, and how it is absorbed. Obviously, the energy required for the holy ring needs to be absorbed in Wenwan antiques. Only valuable, historical, or carefully crafted Wenwan antiques have the energy required by the holy ring. The history of those 200 books is similar to the history of these 3 sketches, but those books do not have this kind of energy, or that these books also have energy but are not recognized by the holy precepts. After all, these books are all mechanically printed, and there is no way to compare with these 3 sketches painted by Picasso himself. After all, these 3 paintings were also carefully painted by Mr. Picasso back then. There must be Picasso's painstaking efforts in the paintings. Only the energy contained in this kind of cultural and antiques with a certain value can be recognized and absorbed by the holy ring. At the same time, if you want to absorb energy, you must make your left little finger touch the target. It seems that the holy ring does not have the legendary air absorption. It is the same, whether it is the method of absorbing the stars that I can do or the method of Huagong of the stars and Old Fairy Chunkaiu. Yu reading www.yuuganchu.com still needs to be in contact with the target person before it can be implemented. The moment the warm current flows into the body, the transparent interface automatically opens again. Yang Jing looked at Fatty subconsciously, and found that Fatty was indifferent at all. Yang Jing let go of his heart, knowing that this transparent interface should only be visible to his host. Seeing the fat man admiring the 3 paintings with a face of fascination, Yang Jing simply ignored him, but looked at the transparent interface. Sure enough, when this heat flow poured into my body, the interface changed a little bit. At least the warning prompt that had turned red due to insufficient energy disappeared, and the font in the system changed from red to red. Light green. Obviously, the energy brought by the 3 sketches has made the energy that was almost exhausted in the holy ring fully supplemented. This can be seen from the change in the font color. This change made Yang Jing secretly happy for a while. However, Yang Jing also noticed another change in the interface, that is, in the middle of the interface, a mark similar to the skill tree appeared. In this skill tree, almost all the skill names are invisible, and they are all grey. Only one skill has turned light green, and the name of this skill is also displayed. The name of this light green skill is called appraisal. Yang Jing tried to tap it, and a line of words appeared as expected. The appraisal skill is one of the basic skills that the holy ring comes with. When the holy ring is bound to the host gene, it will be activated automatically without energy activation. After the host has activated the appraisal skill, it can appraise any item according to the host's own wishes. Each identification requires a certain amount of energy, and the host should also pay attention to supplementing energy.